Molly Parker and the Mysterious Black Oak Park by T.L. Hennig. Chapter 2. "Hi, Molly. How was the pool?" asked her mom. "Good," replied Molly. "Will and Joanna were there." "That's nice. Make sure you put your clean clothes away. They are on the stairs. Take them up with you when you go up." "Okay. Is it okay if I go to the park with him tomorrow after we set up for the garage sale?" "That should be fine. If they want to come help, I could sure use the extra hands. Plus, it might be more fun for you." She winked and smiled at Molly. "I'll even give everyone lunch before you head to the park." "Okay, I will call and ask them," said Molly, bouncing with enthusiasm as she headed up the stairs. Molly ran up the stairs 2 at a time. She got halfway up and realized she forgot to take her clean clothes with her like her mom had asked. She jogged back down the steps, scooped up the clothes, and trotted back up. The tan carpet on the stairs was a bit faded and worn. She hung onto the railing to help keep her balance. She turned to the left at the top of the stairs and walked down the hallway. On the left was a guest room that had a love seat, sofa, and a TV. Across the hall from the guest room was Molly and Missy's bathroom. Molly's room was at the end of the hallway on the right. Missy's was on the left. Molly and her sister were allowed to help decorate their bedrooms. Molly loved her pink and preppy room. Missy's room, on the other hand, was mostly blue. Her wallpaper looked like a giant quilt of pastel colors and designs. They definitely had different tastes, and different personalities, too. Missy was 2 years older than Molly. They got along most of the time. It was ironically funny to Molly that even though she didn't really consider herself to be very girly, her favorite color was definitely pink. Molly looked out the window in her room and stared off into the woods and the apple orchard just beyond. She always thought it would be fun to go on an adventure in the woods and live like people in the olden days. In her imagination, Molly could see how there would be little cabins and tents, and people going about their days with their chores and doing whatever it is people did in the olden days. The men would go out into the woods and explore for food and bring wood and other supplies that might be needed for their homes. Meanwhile, the women and children in the village would do chores around the house and prepare meals. There would be a small town with a general store where people would go to buy supplies like flour, sugar, and molasses. It would be so fun to live just like they did in Little House on the Prairie, Molly thought to herself. She had these thoughts on such a regular basis that they often distracted her, like they were doing now. It was the chime of the grandfather clock downstairs that brought her back to reality. Molly plopped belly down on her bed and picked up the receiver on her phone and pushed the buttons and called Will. Will's mom answered with her usual perky voice. "Hello?" "Hi, Mrs. Trenton. This is Molly. May I speak to Will, please?" "Hi, Molly. Sure, just 1 minute." Molly could hear muffled voices on the other end of the line. "Hello?" "Hi, Will. It's Molly. My mom says I can go to the park tomorrow after I help with the garage sale. She said that if you and Joanna want to come help us set up for it, she will get us lunch before we go to the park." "Okay, let me ask my mom." Will put the receiver in his lap, and Molly could hear more muffled voices. Just a few seconds later, he came back on the line. "She said it's okay." "I'll call Joanna and ask her, too. See you tomorrow." Molly pushed down the receiver button and then dialed Joanna's number. At first, the phone rang and rang, and then an annoyed female teenage voice said, "Hello?" It was Joanna's older sister. "Is Joanna there?" Molly was feeling a bit timid. "Molly, is that you? Didn't you just see her?" Yeah, but I have to ask her if she can come over tomorrow morning and—" "Joanna! Molly's on the phone! Make it quick! I am on the other line!" her sister yelled. With the next day's plans in place, Molly headed back downstairs where her mom was in the kitchen making dinner. The kitchen was a U-shape with maple brown cabinets all around, and it had a patterned carpet which was supposed to look like vinyl flooring. Diane wore an apron and stood at the sink peeling carrots, slicing and then tossing them into the large salad bowl. "How long until dinner's ready?" "About 30 minutes." Before Molly could protest with how hungry she was, Her mom offered her a carrot from the bunch that she was slicing for a salad. Molly took a bite of her carrot and went to the family room to watch with her sister. Their favorite show was The Brady Bunch, a show about a family where the dad had 3 sons from a previous marriage, and the mom had 3 daughters from a previous marriage, and now they all lived happily ever after. Well, kind of. Plus, they have a housekeeper nanny named Alice. That was Molly's favorite character on the show. When Molly walked into the room, it was right in the middle of the intro song. Here's a story of a man named Brady who was living with 3 boys of his own. Here's a story of a lovely lady who was living with 3 girls of her own. All of them had hair of gold, like their mother, the youngest one in curls. Molly and Missy were almost done with the episode of the Brady Bunch when they heard the garage door go up. "Dad's home!" Molly yelled excitedly, mostly because that meant they would eat dinner, but also to see her dad and tell him about her strange encounters from the day. "Hi, Molly Bug. Hi, Missy Sissy," their dad David said as he leaned into the family room. He then turned and walked over to Mom, gave her a kiss on the cheek, and went about pouring himself a scotch on the rocks. Molly thought the stuff smelled like the Bonnie Bell 1006 lotion her mom cleaned her face with. Sometimes her mom had Molly use it too, and she always held her breath while rubbing the soaked cotton ball all over her face. She couldn't understand how anyone could drink anything that smelled like that, but her dad fixed himself one almost every day after he came home from work. "Did you fire anyone today, Dad?" Molly asked, grinning. It was an ongoing joke ever since her dad had set his alarm on his watch as a reminder to fire his secretary, Donna, at the end of the workday. David Parker is an attorney, and apparently he must get so busy that he can't remember when it's time to fire someone. Molly never thought the joke got old. Every time she heard a beep from a watch, she would think, "Time to fire Donna." Dad chuckled. "Not today, Molly Bug. How was your day?" He loosened his tie, set his drink down, and sat at the dinner table. "Missy, dinner is ready. Turn off the TV, please," Diane called into the other room as she set dinner on the table. It was salad and a pasta dish her mom made almost every week. Macaroni pasta with ground beef, pasta sauce, and the mozzarella cheese baked in the oven so the cheese gets all melty and gooey. "Dad, I had the creepiest thing happen today. It started at the pool. Will and I found this enormous ant pile, and when we poked it with a stick, ants went running everywhere," Molly started to explain as she stabbed her fork into the pasta and took a big bite. Molly's mom and dad looked at each other, then at Molly. "That doesn't sound like it was a good idea," her dad said. Molly chewed and swallowed quickly. "But Dad, we ran into the pool to get the ants off of us. Then guess what? We went back to find the ant pile and it was gone," Molly said excitedly. "And don't worry, Mom, when we looked at my ankle, all of my bites were gone too." "Did they pack up and move to another neighborhood pool?" Dad joked. He always had a sarcastic or funny comment. "No, we think something weird is happening in the park, and we are going to check it out tomorrow," Molly said in a serious tone. "I'll tell you what's weird," Mr. Parker said. 3 kids who tromp around the park looking for a missing anthill." He laughed at himself. "I'm serious, Dad," Molly said, exasperated. "You need to be careful and wear some sunscreen and bug spray," Molly's mom chimed in. After dinner, Molly's mom and dad talked about their upcoming bridge game with friends, while her mom cleared the dishes and tidied up the kitchen. Missy went back to the family room to watch TV, but Molly was still too wound up about her day and her planned adventure for the next day, so she decided to take a walk. "I'm going to take a walk around the neighborhood, okay?" "Watch out for disappearing ant piles," Mr. Parker smiled at Molly. "Don't go too far, and be back before it gets too late," her mom reminded her, then turned her attention back to their upcoming bridge night. Molly's parents were really into playing bridge, but Molly was never too interested in cards. She would rather dream up other adventures than sit at a table playing some boring card game. What Molly did like, though, was when her parents had friends over to play bridge. They would set up folding card tables in the living room, and Molly would hide upstairs and listen to their grown-up conversations. Plus, there was always yummy food left over that she was allowed to eat. Molly put on her shoes, then walked out the back door onto the deck. She took a good look at the woods that were just off her deck, then her gaze followed the perimeter of the woods to the back of their property line. There was a flimsy wire fence that separated their yard from the back neighbors, but there was a big gap in the fence, probably from Molly always cutting through to check out what was back there. The neighbors behind them owned a huge property with an apple orchard, and it was the apple orchard that ran perpendicular to Molly's backyard. The whole orchard was surrounded by woods. For the entire time Molly has lived in this house, she has never seen anyone in the apple orchard. And once again her imagination wandered and she started dreaming about how fun it would be to live like the Pilgrims in the olden days in the field. As she walked around the paved sidewalk along the back of her house, she looked over toward the clearing to the apple orchard and imagined women wearing long skirts and bonnets, making hot corn cakes, fresh churned butter, beating the dust out of rugs, men taking horse carriages into town to buy whatever supplies are needed, and bringing home a surprise for the kids, a piece of sugar candy. Molly's imaginary pilgrim life is greatly enhanced by Little House on the Prairie books. She loved them so much and thought it sounded so fun to live like during that time period. Molly secretly wanted to be Laura from the books. Even though Laura sometimes got in trouble, she had a curious sense of adventure and liked to explore. Much more so than Laura's older sister, Mary. Funny, that's a lot like my older sister, Missy, thought Molly. Missy was much quieter and liked to stay home and read. Molly wasn't sure if she hadn't found the right book, but she just would rather be up doing things, exploring and dreaming, than she would sitting and reading. Unless it is Little House on the Prairie, which Molly could read over and over again. Molly headed down her driveway and onto her cul-de-sac as dusk was starting to settle in. This was her favorite time of day to take a walk, when it was getting dark and the lights were on in people's homes. It was so quiet and peaceful outside, and to Molly, she felt like she was getting a glimpse into her neighbors' homes. Looking inside with people eating, talking, and moving among the glow of the interior lights. It made each person's home look so cozy. I wonder if our home looks this cozy to other people. Taking these evening walks always made Molly think about her life. While she couldn't quite explain it, sometimes she feels like she's outside of her body looking in, just like when she looks at herself in the mirror. It's as if she has two minds, one in the current conversation and one that is observing the current conversation, much like being outside of someone's home and getting a glimpse of the inside. Molly wondered if anyone else felt like this, but she never said anything to anyone because it was too hard to explain. Molly turned right at the end of her street onto Braywood Court, which dead ends into the path to the pool. As she approached the end of the street, she stopped and stared at the entrance of the path. It was dusk and it was eerily quiet. Molly looked at the path and contemplated walking down it, just a little ways, but she was too scared. "I'll just wait and go tomorrow with Will and Joanna," she whispered a promise to herself.